I took the drive down to Salt Lake City in the fall of 2003. I remember that because I had just turned 40 and I was going through something of a midlife unraveling. Divorce, job change, the works. I wasn't looking for ghosts or anything like that. I was just trying to clear my head. I'd heard about Lillian Gray from an old message board, back when the internet felt like a secret library full of weird corners. Someone had posted a blurry photo of her gravestone in the Salt Lake City cemetery. It was simple, but unsettling. Beneath her name and the date, Lillian Gray, June 6th, 1881, November 14th, 1958, was the chilling epitaph, victim of the beast 666. The story was vague, nothing concrete. Some said her husband blamed the government or satanic cults for her death. Others said she was part of some fundamentalist splinter group and her death was a message. But nobody seemed to know anything real, and that just hooked me. So I went. I left Boise early, made the drive in one long stretch, got into Salt Lake around 2 p.m., and headed straight for the cemetery. The place is massive. Acres of graves, old headstones cracked and leaning like tired old men. The light was starting to turn gold, the kind of light that makes shadows longer and colors deeper. I parked by 11th Avenue and started walking, using a crude printout map I'd gotten from a forum. It took me a good 20 minutes to find her. There it was, small gray stone sitting at a slight slant. Pine needles had gathered at the base. No flowers, no signs anyone had visited in a long time. And there was that damn inscription, victim of the beast 666. I felt watched. Not like something out of a movie, not dramatic. Just that creeping feeling at the back of your neck when you know someone's looking at you from a distance. I looked up. Nothing. I took some pictures, crouched down to brush the dirt away from the stone, and just sat there for a minute. It's weird. I didn't feel scared exactly. More like unease mixed with sadness, like she wanted someone to notice her. Then something odd happened. As I stood to leave, I felt this subtle vibration under my feet, like a truck was passing somewhere nearby. But the street was empty, no cars, no planes overhead. The air had gone still, absolutely dead, no birds, no wind. And then I heard it, a whisper, right in my ear. He lied. I spun around so fast I nearly lost my balance. Nobody, not a soul. The nearest person I'd seen in the last 20 minutes had been a jogger way off near the east fence line. I just stood there, heart pounding. I tried to convince myself it had been wind, or my imagination. But it hadn't felt like imagination. It had felt close, wet, like someone with chapped lips and a cold mouth had leaned in just inches from my ear. I walked briskly back to the car, trying not to run. I told myself I was just spooked, that cemeteries do that to people. But when I got back to my car, I found something on the windshield, a scrap of paper folded once, weighted down by a pebble. It wasn't there when I parked. I'm sure of that. I opened it. All it said in careful cursive was, she wasn't the first. No name, no signature, just those 4 words. I left Salt Lake before sunset. Didn't stop for dinner. Didn't even check into the motel I'd booked. I never went back. Over the years, I've tried to find out more about Lillian Gray. I even reached out to a couple of genealogists and local historians. Most hadn't heard of her. One woman emailed me back, said she'd looked into the grave once for a school project. According to her, the city's death records listed Lillian's cause of death as unspecified complications. No foul play, no police reports, nothing unusual. But she said something strange. She told me Lillian's husband, Elmer Gray, had disappeared 3 months after her death. Never found. No known burial plot, no death certificate, and that her headstone hadn't always said what it does now. The engraving about the beast was added after the original interment. I still have the photos I took. One shows the grave clearly, but I noticed something in the background once, years later, when I was cleaning out old digital files. There's a shape behind a tree, way off. Could be a shadow, could be a person, but it looks like a woman in an old dress, just standing, watching. And every time I look at it, I feel that same whisper in my ear. He lied. I've lived in Utah all my life, hiked the Wasatch every summer, snowshoed through its frozen veins every winter. But it wasn't until that strange evening in late September, 15 years ago, that I truly learned the mountains could hide more than deer trails and dry creek beds. Sometimes they hide things that were never supposed to be seen again. Back then, I was 28. I'd just taken some time off from work after a nasty breakup, and my best friend Darren, always the adventurer, pitched the idea of hiking Rock Canyon before the first snows came. "Let's check out those ghost stories," he said with a grin. "You know, the ones about the woman who sings near the cliffs, or the shadow people?" I laughed it off. We both grew up hearing the legends, hikers going missing, screams echoing through the canyon at night, lights flickering where no one should be. Local urban legends. Kids dared each other to go up there after dark, but no one really believed. Still, we packed our gear. Flashlights, canteens, some jerky, and a flask of whiskey Darren insisted on bringing in case we needed to loosen up the ghosts. It was late September. The air was crisp and dry, the canyon painted in autumn gold and blood orange. We started up around 2 p.m., planning to make it back down by sunset. The hike up was uneventful, quiet, almost too quiet. No wind, no animals, not even birds. It should have struck me as odd, but I chalked it up to the time of year. We reached a rock outcrop near the old quarry site by 5 p.m. That's when the light started shifting. There's a weird kind of hush that falls over the canyon when the sun drops behind the cliffs, like the place is holding its breath. Darren took a few photos and poured us both a shot from his flask. "To the ghosts," he said, raising his metal cup. We both downed it, laughing. Then we heard it. A woman singing, faint at first. So faint I thought it was the wind. But then it grew louder, clear, haunting. A high, warbling lullaby in a language I didn't recognize. It drifted from somewhere farther up the trail, deeper into the canyon. Darren stood, eyes wide. "You hear that?" "Yeah," I said, my voice suddenly dry. We should have left, but something pulled at us. Morbid curiosity, pride, stupidity, maybe all three. We followed the sound, our flashlights weak against the growing dusk. The path narrowed and twisted. At one point, Darren froze and pointed. I saw it too, a figure, just for a moment. A woman standing on the edge of a high ridge, long hair blowing behind her like smoke, arms outstretched. Then she was gone. "She jumped," Darren whispered. We ran to the ridge. There was nothing below but brush and rock. No sound of a body falling, no splash in the creek. That's when things shifted. The air went cold, sharply, unnaturally cold. Our breath hung like steam in front of our faces. The canyon darkened faster than it should have. I glanced at my phone. Dead. Darren's was too. Let's get back, I said. We turned and saw a man standing in the trail. No flashlight, no pack. Dressed in old hiking gear, the kind you'd see in photos from the 1960s. His face was wrong, blank, almost smudged, like it couldn't settle on one expression. His eyes were pits, dark as the stone around us. He didn't speak, just pointed down the trail behind us. Nope, Darren said. We're going the other way. We bolted, stumbling off trail, breaking through brush. The singing started again, but it wasn't beautiful anymore. It was cracked, agonized, like someone was singing through a crushed windpipe. We reached the main path, gasping for breath. That's when Darren screamed. I turned and saw her again, right behind him. Her face was bloodless, mouth open in a voiceless howl, blackened hands reaching for his neck. I swung my flashlight and it passed through her like smoke. But she recoiled from the beam and vanished into the trees. We didn't stop running, not until we hit the parking lot, not until we were safely inside Darren's truck, windows up, doors locked. The moment we crossed the park boundary, both our phones buzzed back to life. Full signal, 7:43 p.m. We didn't talk much on the ride back. What was there to say? Later, I did some digging. Turns out there was a woman who died in Rock Canyon, jumped to her death from that very ridge in the 1930s after her fiancé died in a mining accident. Others have claimed to see her since, always around September, always at dusk. As for the man on the trail, rumor says he's a hiker who went missing in 1969. Search party found his camp but never found him. Hikers still report seeing him, standing, watching, pointing. Darren moved to Oregon the next year, said he wanted to be closer to the ocean. We haven't spoken in a while. Me? I haven't been back to Rock Canyon, won't even drive past it. But sometimes, when the air turns cold in the early fall and the shadows stretch long across the street, I swear I can hear it. That song, carried on the wind, beckoning. And I remember her eyes, black, bottomless, hungry. I got more than I bargained for. We both did. I should have stayed on I-215. That's what I keep telling myself. Just stayed on the damn freeway and taken the exit to downtown Salt Lake, like every other sane professional on a Wednesday morning. But I was running late. The meeting with our potential investors had already been pushed back twice. It was crunch time, and I'd foolishly let my GPS reroute me when it offered a faster route through Cottonwood Heights. Some shortcut, I thought, winding through back roads under a cold gray sky, surrounded by silent neighborhoods and leafless trees swaying like old bones. I noticed it when I reached a fork near a gravel pull-off, an old structure sitting just beyond a line of barbed wire fencing and brittle brush. It was the color of old ashes, massive, like it had been swallowed up by time and spit out again. A watermill, or what was left of it, towered behind a rusted gate. Half the roof had caved in. Its water wheel was motionless, draped in vines. Weathered boards flapped in the breeze like something trying to breathe. And there was a sign, wooden and hand-painted, hanging crooked off a chain-link post. Cottonwood Heights Mill, established 1861. Trespassers will be prosecuted. I pulled over, checking the time. 9:46 a.m. The meeting had already started. I should have called in, given some excuse. Instead, I sat there, staring at the mill. Something about it I can't explain. I've always had a thing for abandoned places. I blame my grandfather. He used to tell me stories about haunted mines and ghost towns when I was a kid, always warning me not to go poking around old buildings. But here I was. Curiosity won. I parked, pocketed my phone, and ducked through a gap in the fence. The closer I got, the colder it felt. No joke. It was like the air shifted, less like a draft and more like walking into a basement with a leaky foundation. My footsteps crunched on gravel and dead leaves as I approached the sagging front doors. They weren't locked. They weren't even fully closed. One door creaked inward with barely a touch. Inside was pure rot and ruin. The floorboards moaned beneath my feet. Dust hung in the air like old cobwebs, and everything smelled like mildew, copper, and something sweeter, like overripe fruit or decayed meat. I almost turned around then. Almost. The mill was bigger on the inside than it looked. Multiple levels, half of them exposed where the roof had collapsed. Machinery lay in rusted heaps. A wooden staircase spiraled up the side wall, ending in a second-story office with shattered windows overlooking the main floor. Broken sacks of grain littered the corners, and on the far wall, obscured by grime, was a faded mural. A woman in 1800s dress standing beside the mill. Her face had been scratched out. Something scuttled behind me. I spun around. Nothing there. I told myself it was a rat or a raccoon. Just keep looking. Get a few pictures. Something to share later. A fun detour. That's what I kept telling myself as I stepped deeper into the belly of the mill. Then came the footsteps. Not mine. Not an echo. These were heavier, deliberate, coming from upstairs. I froze. They moved across the second floor, slow and rhythmic, like someone pacing. Then a loud creak echoed above me. I glanced up toward the catwalk. That's when I saw her. She stood just outside the office at the top of the stairs. I only caught her for a second, but it's burned into my brain like a scar. Tall, thin, her long black dress flowing like it was caught in water. Her hair was dark and wet-looking, clinging to her neck. Her face was bone-pale and turned downward, as if staring right at me. But it wasn't just the way she looked. It was the way she felt. There was a pressure in the room, not heat, weight, like something was pushing down on me from every direction. My throat tightened. My limbs felt heavy. I backed away toward the door, but the light from outside seemed dimmer than it had been before. Then her head twitched. It didn't turn, it snapped, like something yanked her face toward me, and she screamed. God, the sound. It wasn't just a scream, it was a shriek of fury and pain, like metal scraping metal and a woman wailing at the same time. My ears rang. The walls seemed to shake. I stumbled backward and hit the floor, hands scrambling in the dust. When I looked up again, she was gone. Silence returned. My breath was ragged. The only sound now was the distant trickle of water from beneath the floorboards. Then came the whispers. They surrounded me, male and female voices, some murmuring, others sobbing. I couldn't make out the words, but I felt them. Regret, betrayal, anger. Help me, someone whispered. Then, she's still here. I got to my feet and ran. I don't remember getting back to my car. I must have jumped the fence. I must have started the engine and floored it out of there. But all I can recall is staring into the rearview mirror and seeing her, that woman, standing in the doorway of the mill, her hands hanging limp at her sides, watching me leave. I didn't make the meeting. I didn't care. I spent the rest of the day in my hotel room, curtains drawn, trying to convince myself it was stress, a trick of the light, an overactive imagination. But the dreams came that night. In them I stood inside the mill again, surrounded by shadows. The woman was there, closer this time. Her face was stitched shut at the mouth. She held out her hand to me, palm up. Something moved beneath her skin, like insects crawling inside. I tried to scream, but I couldn't. I couldn't even move. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. The next morning I did some digging. Turns out the Cottonwood Heights mill was once owned by a man named Ezra Blackstone in the 1860s. He built it with his fortune and brought his young wife, Margaret, to live there with him. According to local legend, she hated the isolation, hated the dark hours Ezra worked. Rumors claimed she fell in love with a worker at the mill. Others said Ezra found out and sealed her in the grain chute as punishment, alive. No charges were ever filed. The mill shut down in 1871 after a mysterious fire in the boiler room killed 3 men. Some say her ghost still haunts the place, especially on cold mornings, when the fog is thick and the light won't quite reach the corners. It's been months now. I moved jobs. I don't go near Cottonwood Heights anymore, but sometimes I see her, not fully, just in glimpses, in the reflective glare of a passing window, in the shape of a woman watching from a roadside field. Once, in my own bathroom mirror, just behind my shoulder. She never speaks, but I hear the whispers when I'm alone. And I know, one day, I'll take another wrong turn, and I won't come back.